Welcome back to Coins Numismatic Series. Today, we're diving deep into a rare and valuable George Washington quarter that could be hiding in your collection, the 1967 Washington quarter dollar. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't that just a regular quarter? Well, not quite. While billions were minted, only a tiny fraction exist in top condition, and some rare varieties and errors can push their value into the thousands. If you've got a 1967 quarter in excellent condition, this might just be your lucky day. Let's start with a bit of history. The 1960s were a turbulent time for U.S. coinage. Just 2 years earlier, in 1965, the U.S. Mint made a drastic change by removing silver from dimes and quarters due to rising silver prices. Before that, quarters were 90% silver, but from 1965 onward, they were struck in a copper-nickel composition, known as a clad coin. This change led to widespread hoarding of older silver quarters, creating a shortage of circulating coinage. To combat this, the U.S. Mint took an unusual step. They temporarily removed mint marks from all dimes, quarters, and half dollars minted between 1965 and 1967. That's why the 1967 Washington quarter has no mint mark, even though it was struck at multiple mint locations, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. This decision was intended to discourage collectors from hoarding newly minted coins, ensuring that more of them remained in circulation. Now, let's talk design. The obverse of the 1967 Washington quarter features the classic portrait of George Washington, originally designed by John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. The word Liberty is boldly inscribed above Washington's head, while In God We Trust appears to the left of his profile. The date, 1967, is positioned at the bottom reverse. You'll find the majestic bald eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, its wings spread wide, symbolizing strength and readiness for defense. Below the eagle, an olive branch represents peace. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions, United States of America, and quarter dollar. While this design remained unchanged for decades, finding a 1967 quarter with full, sharp details is no easy task. The total mintage of the 1967 Washington quarter was massive. Over 1.5 billion coins were struck. That might sound like these quarters are everywhere, but here's where things get interesting. While they were produced in huge numbers, the quality control was subpar. The U.S. Mint was focused on pumping out as many coins as possible to keep up with demand, which means many of these quarters left the mint with weak strikes, scratches, and surface marks. Because of this, high-grade examples are incredibly rare today. Now, let's get to the part you've been waiting for, value. If you have a 1967 quarter that has been circulated, it's likely worth just 25 cents to $1. However, if you have an uncirculated example, the value jumps significantly. A well-preserved quarter graded MS-65 can sell for around $25 to $50. If you're lucky enough to own an MS-66 example, it could be worth $150 to $300. But here's the real jackpot. An MS-67 or higher 1967 quarter can fetch anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. The highest graded specimens, those in MS-68, have been known to sell for over $20,000 to $25,000 at major auctions. But that's not all. Some 1967 Washington quarters feature rare errors and varieties that can make them even more valuable. Let's go over a few key ones. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die obverse, DDO, variety. If you look closely at the inscriptions, especially the word Liberty and In God We Trust, you may notice slight doubling. This error occurs when the die shifts slightly between strikes, creating a doubled image. Depending on the severity, these coins can sell for anywhere from $100 to $5,000, with extreme cases fetching even more. Another exciting error is the off-center strike, where the coin is struck improperly, causing part of the design to be missing. The more off-center the strike, the higher the value, especially if the date remains visible. A 10% off-center 1967 quarter might bring $50 to $150, but if it's 50% or more off-center, it could sell for upwards of $2,000 to $4,000. There's also the clipped planchet error, where part of the coin's edge appears cut off due to a defect in the blanking process. While minor clips might only add $20 to $50 in value, larger, more dramatic clips can push prices into the hundreds. Another rare error is the missing clad layer variety. Some 1967 quarters were struck with a missing outer nickel layer, exposing the copper core beneath. These odd-looking coins can be worth anywhere from $500 to $3,000, depending on their condition and the extent of the missing layer. So, how do you know if you have a valuable 1967 quarter? First, check the condition. Coins with full details, clean surfaces, and strong luster are the most valuable. If you suspect your quarter might be a rare error, examining it under magnification is key. If you're unsure, consider having it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, as authentication and a high-grade certification can dramatically increase its value. Many collectors overlook 1967 Washington quarters because they assume they're common, but the truth is, high-grade examples and error varieties can be worth thousands. If you have an old coin jar or a collection passed down from family, now is the time to go through it carefully. You never know, you might be holding on to a small fortune without realizing it, and there you have it. The 1967 Washington quarter might seem ordinary at first, but in the right condition or with the right error, it can be a true collector's prize. We're diving into another exciting and potentially valuable coin, the 1966 Washington quarter dollar. If you've got one of these in excellent condition, you might be sitting on a hidden treasure. While many people assume quarters from the 1960s are common, there are certain rare variations, high-grade examples, and unique errors that can push their value into the thousands of dollars. Let's take a step back in history. The mid-1960s were a chaotic time for American coinage. Just a year earlier, in 1965, the U.S. Mint made the controversial decision to remove silver from dimes and quarters due to the rising price of silver. Before this, Washington quarters were composed of 90% silver and 10% copper, but starting in 1965, they transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition. This change was meant to keep coins in circulation and prevent hoarding, but it also led to some unexpected rarities in the years that followed. One of the key features of the 1966 Washington quarter is that it has no mint mark. This was intentional. Between 1965 and 1967, the U.S. Mint removed mint marks from all dimes, quarters, and half dollars as part of an effort to discourage coin hoarding. During this time, quarters were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, but because there's no mint mark, there's no way to determine exactly where an individual coin was produced. This makes high-grade specimens even more exciting because their origins remain a mystery. Now, let's talk about the design. The obverse, front, of the 1966 quarter features the classic portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan in 1932. The design was originally created to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth and became a staple of American coinage. Above Washington's head, you'll find the word Liberty, and to the left, the phrase, "In God We Trust." Below his chin, the date, 1966, is prominently displayed. Turning to the reverse, we see the majestic American bald eagle with its wings spread, standing atop a bundle of arrows, which represent strength and military readiness. Beneath the arrows, an olive branch symbolizes peace. The inscriptions, United States of America, and quarter dollar, encircle the design. While this design remained unchanged for decades, finding a 1966 quarter with full, sharp details and strong luster is rare. Now, here's where things get really interesting, mintage and rarity. In 1966, the U.S. Mint struck 821,101,500 Washington quarters. That's a massive number, making it one of the most common quarters of the 1960s. However, because of the high-speed production process, many of these quarters were struck with weak details, scratches, or poor-quality surfaces. This means that while lower-grade quarters are very common, finding one in superb condition, MS67 or higher, is extremely difficult. So, what does this mean for value? A circulated 1966 quarter is typically worth only 25 cents to $1, depending on its wear. But if you have an uncirculated coin in mint state, MS65 or higher, the value jumps significantly. MS65, gem uncirculated worth around $25 to $50. MS66, high grade valued at $100 to $300. MS67, superb gem condition can sell for $2,000 to $5,000. MS68, near perfect condition. These are exceptionally rare and can fetch prices over $20,000 to $25,000 at auction. But wait, it gets even better. Some 1966 quarters have rare errors that make them significantly more valuable. Let's go over some of the most sought-after error coins. one of the most exciting varieties is the double die obverse, DDO. This occurs when the coin's die shifts slightly during the minting process, causing some elements of the design to appear double. If you spot doubling in Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date, you might have a valuable error coin worth anywhere from $500 to $5,000, depending on the severity. Another valuable error is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is struck improperly, resulting in part of the design being misaligned. If the coin is only slightly off-center, 5 to 10%, it might be worth $50 to $150. But if it's 50% or more off-center while still showing the date, it could fetch over $2,000. There's also the clipped planchet error, where part of the coin is missing due to a defect in the blanking process. Depending on the size of the clip, these errors can range from $50 to $500 in value. One of the most dramatic errors is the missing clad layer. Some 1966 quarters were struck without their outer nickel layer, revealing the copper core beneath. These striking errors are rare and can sell for $1,000 to $3,000 or more, depending on their condition. So, how do you know if your 1966 quarter is valuable? First, check its condition. If it has sharp details, clean surfaces, and a strong luster, it could be worth sending in for professional grading. Major grading companies like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company, can authenticate your coin's condition and assign it a grade, which significantly increases its value to collectors and investors. If you think you have a rare error coin, examine it closely under magnification. Look for signs of doubling, off-center strikes, or missing layers. If you're unsure, consulting with a coin dealer or numismatic expert can help you determine its worth. The 1966 Washington quarter may seem common at first glance, but finding one in exceptional condition or with a major error can turn it into a high-value collector's item. If you have an old coin collection or a jar of quarters, now is the time to check for hidden treasures. Stay tuned, because in our next episode, we're uncovering another highly valuable and rare US coin that might just be hiding in plain sight. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy collecting.